Hey everybody. Okay, I know we're running a few minutes late. I was on my wrong Instagram account. I was like talking to the world, going on and on about everything that's happening. But there. Oh, hi. How you doing, Jake? But anyway, so now I'm on the right Instagram feed. There's Jessica. We're gonna bring Jessica on right now. I was like, what is happening? No one's showing up, but now we know why. Okay, Jess. Oops. There we go. Come join me. Let's see if it's going to work. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I had a bumpy start this morning. I was on the wrong Instagram channel.
It happens to the best of us.
Doesn't it though? Doesn't
Yeah,
it? Yes. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you. It's nice to be here with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you. And particularly today, which, this whole week is a Holocaust Remembrance Week. It's Israel's, Yom HaShoah honors both the fallen as well as the heroes. But officially we begin at sundown tonight and, it's this 24-hour period. But I know that museums and community centers and houses of worship all week long are having special events. So it's really meaningful to me that you are my guest today. And I want everyone to get to know you and hear your story, Jessica, and explain your relationship with Holocaust Center of Humanity in Seattle and so forth. So everybody, welcome, 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 my friend, my new friend, Jessica Fenton, who interviewed me last week. And I had such a wonderful experience with the particular group, Continuing Generations, at the Holocaust Center for Humanity in Seattle with you, that I just thought, you've got to come on. I want to hear more stories about other descendants of survivors.
Thank you.
So, of course, of course. So tell everybody, if you would, who you are and how you came to be involved with the Holocaust Center in Seattle and the Continuing Generations group.
Sure. So I grew up in South Florida, and I grew up very geographically close and also just relationship wise close with my grandparents, who were both Holocaust survivors. And my mother was actually born in a DP camp in Stuttgart, after the end of the war, when my grandparents met and got married in a DP camp. So I've always been very aware that my family comes from a very strong background in Eastern Europe, and that I come from a family of survivors, and that I was actually first generation American on my mother's side. And growing up in South Florida, there are a lot of Jews in South Florida. A lot of them came from New York and retired or have second homes in South Florida. And so I never felt like it was anything special, for lack of a better term. I was around a lot of survivors. I heard a lot of Yiddish growing up. Um, and I didn't even realize until I went to college and kind of never moved back to South Florida that that wasn't the case elsewhere in this country and in other places, other cities. So it just started to dawn on me that I never felt like a Jew being any kind of minority or other growing up in South Florida, but I started to get those feelings the more I lived elsewhere. And as I have three children, and I see them being definitely sometimes the only Jew in their class at school, or not having things in common when they have to go to Hebrew school and they have to miss a baseball game or something, I realized it became more and more important to share my grandparents' legacy, because it wasn't a given. Not everybody had even necessarily met a Jew, let alone known about the Holocaust or personal stories from people that they know in real life versus reading in a book. So it was really a by chance thing that happened a couple years ago. A friend of mine invited me to an event at the Holocaust Center for Humanity in Seattle, a lunch and learn. And I went, and another speaker was giving his presentation, sharing his grandparents' stories. And afterwards, he came up to me and said, "Oh, I heard your grandparents were survivors. We could always use more speakers in the Bureau." And right then and there, it just kind of clicked. And I said, yeah, I'm very interested. And you never know if those things are going to really pan out or not. But they followed up, I followed up, and here I am 2 years later with a beautiful presentation that the Holocaust Center helped me develop.
Mm.
I knew bits and pieces from my grandparents because they didn't like to talk about it a lot. And in giving those bits and pieces to the center, they were able to use their resources to fill in a lot of the blanks that I had of the stories. And it makes a lot more sense now. It's a lot easier for me to share those stories with people and help them understand the chronological order of things and where they traveled on the map, et cetera. So I'm forever grateful to the Holocaust Center. And at the very least, it provides me with literally a PowerPoint that I can pass on to my children when I'm not doing this anymore, or hopefully one of them will continue, or maybe all of them will continue to share the stories, but they have something tangible that they can go off of. If they forget the oral tradition and the oral stories that I give, they have something in writing. So it's been quite a journey, and I feel like my bucket is full now. This is my calling. I have found my place and my purpose, and that is such a special thing for me, but also to know that I'm also contributing to educating others about the Holocaust and all the lessons we can learn from it is just double whammy blessing for me.
That's amazing. So how can people see your presentation?
So a couple of ways. First of all, I did do one of those lunch and learns that I had seen the other speaker do, and it happened virtually because I began my career as a Speakers Bureau member online during the pandemic. And those presentations are archived, so you can go to the Holocaust Center's website, and I probably should have remembered it exactly, so I don't want to give the wrong one, but I feel like it's Holocaust Center seattle.org, and you guys can check that out. And the archive presentations are there. So
Great.
that's one place. And then if you subscribe to receive their emails, there are other places where I might give that presentation. Primarily, a lot of my presentations are to schools, to middle schools, high schools. I've presented at Gonzaga. I've presented to the Archdiocese of Seattle, who are interested in teaching more Holocaust education to their schools and their students. So that is one of the main purposes of the Speakers Bureau, is to educate students and in universities and in middle and high schools.
Great. That's wonderful. I mean, we certainly need so much more of that. How do you feel that the state of Seattle is doing with regards to Holocaust education?
Well, I would say that the center was pivotal in supporting legislation to, they don't mandate Holocaust education. It's actually interesting. I asked why. And if you mandate it, you don't really have control necessarily of what's being put out there. And so you have people that may not have the proper tools and resources, but are still mandated to teach it, and you don't really know what you're getting. However, the center developed a very specific and thorough and engaging curriculum for Holocaust education that they now have access to all the schools to distribute, and wonderful programs to give them literally artifacts from the center or books that they have selected that are really great teaching tools. So I feel like the state of Washington is doing a really great job from what I can see. Again, I've only been involved for a couple of years, but I've become a big supporter of the center because I see how impactful they really are. They're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Which is incredible. I mean, also you have school-age children. So your children are probably the recipients of some of the different kinds of curriculum that are being developed. That's interesting what you say about mandating. And although I understand and appreciate that, it seems to me as though at the state level, but also on the federal level, if we don't fund the education, then it almost has no chance of getting out there. So I think it's that we're looking for funding for it, or always seeking to explore more options for funding. And thank goodness for Carolyn Maloney, the Congresswoman from New York, who wrote the Never Forget bill, and it was unanimously passed in the Senate last June. There wasn't a lot of fanfare because of COVID, and of course, Black Lives Matter all happened in June, and our summer just was, our whole year has been hijacked with one thing after another, not the least of which was the election. But at least now we have a Senate that did unanimously pass a bill to fund Holocaust education nationwide, because right now I think only 16 states are getting funding for it, at least from their states. So bravo to the Holocaust Center. Tell us a little bit more about the Continuing Generations group that I participated in last week. How did that get developed? First of all, how long has the center been around, and when did the Continuing Generations group get initiated?
You're totally putting me on the spot.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't want to give misinformation. I don't know how long the Holocaust Center has been around,
Okay.
But I will get back to you with that information. I have been a member group for the past year, and it's children and grandchildren of survivors. What's been incredible about coming together as a group, not only are we able to hear each other's stories and really just, it's amazing. We're all descendants of Holocaust survivors, and every story still has our jaw dropping, because every story is just so unique, and just miracles really happened for a lot of people. So it's very jaw-dropping to hear other people's stories. What I really love about the group is that we provide programs like having you on and learning about your amazing film, and having you share your perspective with our group, where we can grow as descendants and grow as people who are tasked with sharing the stories of our family history and the messages that people can get from them. And we have recently discussed that we are all experiencing, not all, but a majority of the members of that group are experiencing some form of intergenerational trauma. Mm-hmm. And even not really understanding what intergenerational trauma is, but when we share behaviors that we see, I'll just give you some small examples.
Great.
When I had young infants and I was nursing my children and rocking them in the rocking chair, I literally would stare at my babies and think, what if somebody banged down the door right now and took the baby out of my arms? I don't know many new mothers who have that thought when they're nursing their brand new babies. There are a million other things that would be in your mind. And every time I was rocking in that rocking chair, I could only think about all the babies that were ripped from their mother's arms. Mm. Or I play hide and seek with my kids, and I think to myself, I'm going to hide as if the Nazis are trying to find me. It helps me win hide and seek. My kids don't find me. And it's just a crazy thing that how many people think that way when they're playing hide and seek with their kids. So those are some small examples where I started to realize, this is affecting me in a way that it just doesn't affect other people necessarily. And even in the past several years, with the climate in our country and the rise of anti-Semitism and the rise of hate, and it being okay to verbalize your hate and act upon your hate, and that just becoming more acceptable for some reason in the past couple of years, I started to get panicky when I saw the insurrection at the Capitol and I saw the t-shirts of 6 million was not enough in Camp Auschwitz. I literally got panicky, and I realized that my kids' passports have expired. And even though we were strictly quarantining, I took them all to the post office so we could renew our passports, because I said, we are not going to be a family who doesn't have our papers. We always hear from survivors, oh, these papers, those papers. They asked for my papers. I had to show fake papers. I don't want to be without papers. How many people think of that during COVID?
Yeah.
So when you share stories like that with other continuing generation members, you realize you're not the only one. It is unique to us. And how can we support each other? And how can we learn? And how can we maybe also give the positives to lessen some of that trauma? I did hear some wonderful stories about how people take that trauma and turn it around. And hunger is a big theme of Holocaust survivors, and food, and having a certain relationship with food. And a lot of our continuing generation members are very active in involved with. So it's just been a really lovely group, and I was so glad that you were able to come and share your work, because you truly inspired a lot of people to take on their own passion projects like you did with your film.
Well, thank you. I mean, I hope that people do feel the permission to explore their family story in any way that is meaningful to them, and whether it's for a public audience or not, it's a story worth exploring. You know, even if it's just for yourself or just for your family, like my uncle did. writing this 40-page memoir that I was able to then use as a roadmap for our filming when we were in Germany. So you never know where your own exploration of the story will go or how it will be used by another generation. So I really encourage everyone to do it, whether it's art or poetry or music or dance or a film or a book or anything. It's so interesting that you talk about intergenerational trauma that way. I have never considered myself to be someone who has intergenerational trauma, but now that you mentioned some of the examples, there is one thing that has come to mind for me, and I always kind of just chalked it up to being an actor. As an actor, my job is to allow my imagination to go like go crazy. It's fine. That's my job. If I can't let it do that, then I can't climb into the shoes of other people, other characters, and see their point of view. So, as an actor, you're also doing all kinds of exercises and different things that your teachers have you do, or that you're just doing yourself to just try and access whatever you need to access. And there have been many times, either in an acting setting or even primarily in sports, where I say to myself, you need to run, you need to challenge yourself, you need to run as if you're being hunted. And that's come up for me like my whole life. But I've always said, don't do that to yourself. What's the matter with you? And then I go on to the next kind of like inspiring thought to get myself to run faster because I'm trying to work out or do my cardio or whatever it is. But it's so interesting that you bring it up in that context, because I can't imagine. I've always kind of kept that private to myself and thought no one else thinks that way. I mean, unless you're a survivor. But for a child of a survivor, I can't imagine. I would imagine that my brother or my sister don't think that way. I have to ask them. But it's interesting that you bring it up that way. It's something that I'd never really considered was part of that. But of course, it makes perfect sense.
And I don't purport to be any kind of specialist in the matter, so I don't know if it falls under the technical intergenerational trauma, but that's how I interpret my trauma. And it did go deeper. I'm not going to lie. This past year, my trauma, I legitimately was sad at the state of affairs and nervous. And I thought to myself, I have a mezuzah outside of my front door. My grandfather's neighbors turned on him. My grandmother's neighbors turned on her. My neighbors seem friendly now, but would they turn on me? And I'm advertising I'm Jewish with my mezuzah. I hate that I got that nervous. I didn't live like that my whole life, which makes my work with the Holocaust Center even that much more meaningful and important to me, that I'm going to be an upstander and an activist by teaching rather than just sitting here being scared all the time.
Absolutely.
That's what I have chosen to do. And I just wanted to let you know, watching your film and seeing that reverse perspective of Mit's grandson that you got to meet, and how had they not survived, he wouldn't be there. And my grandfather was in hiding, and there were people who hid him throughout his journey as he continued to move around, or fed him for a night. And always talked about the kindness of the Gentiles, he would put it that way. And I think a lot of us don't stop and give them enough credit and acknowledge them, because there were so many enablers, right, in Germany and Poland and other countries once they were taken over, that enabled it to happen or just stood by and watched. But there were so many people that were pivotal to the survival of so many people by helping. And they too, I now, from watching your film, literally would use the term survivor, because they could have been killed for helping, and they weren't caught, and they saved lives, and they were survivors, and they were survivors of humanity. You also talked about to our group how you really see it as an issue of humanity, which I completely agree with, that it's not just about anti-Semitism and hate crimes, and it is about that too, but it's about being human. The humanity was stripped away from Jews and other prisoners but the humanity was just lost among a lot of other people who
Mm-hmm.
lived during those times in those areas. And for the people like the Smiths that helped other people, the humanity was heroic. And the fact that we have to even consider humanity to be heroic just shows how crazy that time was. And I really hope that we just focus on humanity today. There are so many people who are affected by what's going on today. And I just really hope that we put humanity first. That's why it's just so crazy. The Holocaust Center for Humanity is the name of the center. And I never stopped to really think about the fact that it is about being human,
Mm-hmm.
the positives about being human, what makes us human versus animal. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront of my life and to all the people that you share your story with.
Oh, of course. I mean, we have to credit my mother, who's the one who really um, speaks about that so eloquently. She, I think I mentioned in our talk last week that when people have asked my mother, uh, where was God during Holocaust? And her response is, it has nothing to do with God. It has to do with where was humanity. And it is something that we have to really, as a nation, as a people, as a population, we must examine this. It makes no sense to me how anyone can consider anyone else's life less than. But there are people that feel that way. And so how can we break out of our own echo chamber and find opportunities to have civil discourse with people that don't think the way that we do? Isn't that what it's all about? That we can get along with our neighbors and we can talk with each other and figure it out. And I know that there's kind of this Pollyanna notion that I have about that, but we have to at least try.
I fully agree. And I think, my rabbi has reminded me when I got really down last year and I reached out to him just saying, are people working on this? Who's gonna, if anti-Semitism gets to a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
somebody in charge, is somebody working on this? And he helped me just understand that as horrible as things can get right now, we have made progress and we are in a much better place than we were before. And there are ups and downs. But that gives me hope too, that we are fully capable. We are capable, even when we can disappoint ourselves, of being resilient
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward as a society, and love will win out. And I brought this, I hope you don't mind if I share.
No, please.
My grandfather was a big fan of my husband, and he gave him this pocket watch.
Oh.
This pocket watch he found on one of his first dates with my grandmother in the DP Camp Stuttgart area, literally in the rubble.
Mm.
And he had it engraved with their initials, NGMB Stuttgart, September 15th, 1946.
Wow.
It still works.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I think this pocket watch is just the ultimate symbol of rebuilding from the rubble.
Mm.
And it's the reason that I was prompted to even take it out now in our conversation is that we can rebuild even through a pandemic, or when things get bad, or we have these woke moments where, what have we been doing this whole time? My grandfather lived till the age of 94. My grandmother lived till age of 90. They had children, they had great grandchildren. They lived full lives, luckily. And it started from the rubble.
Mm.
So it's just something that helps me remember. I brought it to this
That is
interview.
beautiful. That is just beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing
I
that.
feel like Pulp Fiction, like I'm going to pass on to future generations. I don't know how we'll get there, but yes, something positive.
Yeah, no, it's just so special when we have these talismans that can connect us to the past. One of the scenes in the film that we know, we're still editing. The film is not finished, and but there are scenes that we know are absolutely going to stay, no question about it. And one of them has to do with me touching a piece of paper that had my biological grandfather's handwriting on it. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, I've never touched anything that was in the same room that he was before. And so, you know, just knowing that we have these tactile things that are kind of like proof of our own existence, proof that our generations before existed, and the struggles that they went through. You know, it's kind of amazing how we we've become this very disposable society. Clothes are disposable, houses, cars, bikes, you know, everything's disposable, and we really think nothing of it. But if we can actually turn the clock back to understanding, why do we have objects in the first place other than a tool, or, you know, a bed, or a piece of, you know, a piece of clothing. I think that there's this thing about memory that it's okay to honor and respect and understand that sometimes these objects really do reflect something so much deeper inside of who we are, and remind us that we're just guests here, and we're passing through. And, you know, how can we take what our previous generations, what they went through, how can we take it forward and just build upon that?
Well, and I think talking about the Holocaust, it's extremely important because there are deniers.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the proof, at some point, maybe that will catch on even more and more and more. It, you know, that has been in waves too. So it is important. I have this box in my room. I call it kind of my fire box. That if God forbid there was a fire in my house, certain things are in this box. I grab the box, and I don't have to around the house, and, you know, my wedding videos in there. And my grandfather's testimony to the Holocaust Museum in South Florida is in that box as well. This watch is close by. So I feel it's that important to have that proof, because as I mentioned to you when we talked last week, it's just becoming further and further away. And I don't know if you saw the movie Coco, the Disney movie Coco.
Oh, yes, yes.
But the premise, one of our favorite movies to watch as a family, but the premise being, if there's nobody left to remember you, then you would be forgotten. And I cannot let that happen with my grandparents. I cannot let that happen with the Holocaust. And there won't be anybody left to remember if you and I and others don't continue to talk about it or have these things that we can show as proof. So,
well, I applaud you for the work that you're doing. The Holocaust Center in Seattle is so lucky to have you.
Thank you.
It's a very special group that you guys have. I really enjoyed meeting everybody. You and Ellie are doing amazing work, and the gentle souls that participated in last week's evening are really touched me in such a way that made me feel a connection to our generation and our legacy that I hadn't really felt as deeply before. So I'm really honored. And carry on. Let us know, how can people, I guess what you're saying is people can go to the Holocaust Center for Humanity's website, and they can look in the archives to find your presentation. And I'm sure that they can contact you there as well if they'd like you to come and speak for their organization, so forth. Yeah. Okay, good.
Someone in charge of matching speakers with organizations, and I encourage people to do that. And there are survivors that are on that speakers bureau too. So it's very special to have the range of children, grandchildren, survivors.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so very much. You know, today, this week, as we talked about at the beginning of the half hour, is such an important week for so many of us who want to honor those who have fallen, but also the heroes, those who helped along the way. And I know, for example, right now, as we're speaking, Yad Vashem in Jerusalem is having their Yom HaShoah remembrance ceremony. And people can just Google any of the different houses of worship, museums, community centers that are engaged in talking about the Holocaust and the conversation. And there will be, I'm sure, a meaningful, I think you guys have one tomorrow at noon.
Tomorrow at noon Pacific time.
Great.
Bring a can. come to the event, and
Yes.
it's a nice pause in the day.
Wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you so very much for joining me today. And I just want to give a shout out for everybody who's listening or maybe watching the replay. This can be rewatched on our here on IGTV, but also on our YouTube channel, which will get posted later this afternoon. And then also this afternoon, I'll be speaking at Temple Sholem virtually in Chicago, which is where I became a bat mitzvah in honor of Yom HaShoah and giving a presentation. Tomorrow, my mother will be speaking at Sinai Congregation in Chicago, and I'll be joining her in that presentation to honor Yom HaShoah. And then on Friday, I'll be speaking at Am Shalom, which is in Glencoe, Illinois. So it's a busy, busy week. And then Sunday, my dear friend Adriana Balaban, who's a Los Angeles-based philanthropist, will be hosting a fundraiser for Would You Hide Me to help get us over the finish line as we're in our final phases of post-production. Wonderful. So lots going on this week, and hope to see everybody there. Thank you again, Jessica. So grateful. And I'm just so happy to meet you and to know you.
You as well. And I will give a personal ploy to any of my friends and community watching. Please donate to Beth's film. You need to see it. It needs to come out and the world needs to see it. So thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, guys, have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all. Oh, next week, gosh, I forgot to mention this. Next week, Michelle Ripka, who's an incredible violinist, will be joining me on Banter with Beth. The week after that, Marla Abraham of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum will be my guest. And then the week after that, we'll be tuning in 1 hour earlier with filmmaker extraordinaire Christy Guevara Flanagan, who will be talking about her film Aguilas, which is an extraordinary story about the death of migrants at the southern border. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.